I think this is the first video I've made on this channel that actually takes place outside of the Southwest. And here we have the Midwest. And it was bound to happen at some point. I mean, the channel's not called Benji Roams the Southwest. If I go somewhere cool, I'm going to share it with you guys. And I did go somewhere cool. I went home, Minnesota over the 4th of July. And there's so many cool places in Minnesota. But here's just a sampling of some of the wonderful landscapes of Minnesota. Right here, this is Highway 61 on the north shore of Lake Superior. It's a scenic drive, and it's a very scenic drive. It goes through volcanic cliffs, volcanic rocks. It's a land of water, really. Water dominates Minnesota. You might know Minnesota as the land of 10,000 lakes. There's actually more than 12,000 lakes, or roughly 12,000 lakes that are over 10 acres in size. So if you ever hear a state claim they have more lakes than Minnesota, they're lying, because they don't have standards. We have standards. A lake has to be at least 10 acres in size. Wisconsin says, well, we have 15,000 lakes. It's just not true unless you count a pond or a drainage ditch as a lake, as they do. But anyways, the North Shore of Lake Superior is one of the most beautiful places in the entire world. It's one of the most beautiful places in Minnesota for sure. Here we have Gooseberry Falls, multiple cascades over rhyolite. I think it's a volcanic rock. And this goes back to the ancient core of the continent. I believe this was, this rock is from the mid-continental rift a long time ago, basically from Kansas all the way up through Lake Superior. The continent of North America ripped apart like what is happening in Africa today. And that allowed for an intrusion of magma, and that hardened into the volcanic rocks we see today. The core of the continent also lies in northern Minnesota and Canada. It's the Canadian Shield, which is the North American Craton, and it's exposed bedrock, so that's also a lot of what you see in northern Minnesota. Anyways, what was I talking about? Gooseberry Falls. Oh, land of water. Yes, Lake Superior, the North Shore of Lake Superior. This is a great region. Lake Superior is the largest freshwater lake in the entire world, and it's the deepest of the Great Lakes. These are all glacial lakes, so they formed after the glaciers receded and their water melted and formed lakes in the basins they created. So we have all these little tumbling streams on the north shore of Lake Superior that find their way into the lake. And Lake Superior is really cold and deep. It's always cold. It always has a temperature, at least underneath the surface, it always has a temperature of about 37 degrees Fahrenheit, 39 degrees Fahrenheit or so. It's the densest temperature of water. And it is deep. It's over 1,300 feet deep at its deepest. And it regulates the weather around the region. It's so big, it has a high heat capacity. It really influences the area. So anyways, Gooseberry Falls, multiple cascades, as I said. It's one of Minnesota's great state parks, and it's just a beautiful area. White cedar, white pine, white spruce, balsam fir, quaking aspen, moose maple or mountain maple, red maple. So many plants characteristic of the boreal forest or the north woods. And there's also lots of berries, wild strawberries and thimbleberries and blueberries. It's just a land of abundance. Lots of crazy animals too. Lynx, wolf, cougar or mountain lion, bobcat, moose, white-tailed deer, black bear, everything you can think of, really. We probably have it. Minnesota was the only state outside of Alaska to always retain its gray wolf population, and today it has the largest population of gray wolves outside of Alaska. We've always had gray wolves in Minnesota. We also have the largest bald eagle population outside of Alaska, although Florida is kind of coming up. They do have lots of woods and waters that bald eagles enjoy, so they're trying to catch up to Minnesota, but we'll see if they ever do. And the North Shore of Lake Superior, it has a lot of history as well. The mining history here runs deep. Minnesota, this is an opinion and a fact, Minnesota single-handedly saved the world from fascism during World War II. We produced more iron ore out of any other place to help build everything in World War II, including the ships and the and machinery, the heavy machinery, everything. All the iron from Minnesota dug in huge open pit mines in the Mesabi Range, the Iron Range of Minnesota. Well, there's multiple iron ranges, but the Mesabi Range is the biggest. That iron was sent down the great shipping lanes of the Great Lakes into the steel towns of probably like Gary, Indiana, and Ohio, like Youngstown and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. All of those places, they smelted, is that the term? They smelted steel, they smelted iron, Minnesota iron, to create steel that built the world, that shaped the world. There's a cool article I read. Actually, my grandpa sent me it. It was a newspaper article, and it talked about how Minnesota helped win the war along with Spam and other amazing Minnesotan inventions. But there was a quote in there that said something like, the Mesabi Iron Range is our little secret, is our greatest power. Mr. Hitler will never be able to win the war as long as we have the Mesabi Iron Range of Minnesota. He can try all he wants, but we will outproduce him and we will win the war. And that's basically what happened. We outproduced Germany. We went from being such an isolationist country after World War I. We had like one of the weakest militaries, the smallest militaries, and the smallest production, one of the lowest levels of military production, military equipment and everything, out of any country in the entire world, even though we are one of the biggest countries in the world, even before World War II. But we used the power of America to rapidly grow and expand into a great superpower. And it was World War II that was the opportunity that we seized on to show the world and say, wow, we can really just make anything. We can make anything faster than you can. We can do it better than you can. And that's exactly what we did. Two Harbors, Minnesota. That's what we've been looking at here for the past couple minutes. Two Harbors, Minnesota is one of the magnificent ports of Minnesota along Lake Superior's north shore. As its name implies, there are two sheltered harbors in the town of Two Harbors, and you can see the freighters, the big ships, the cargo ships that come into the harbor, and they take whatever the land has to give them. In this case, it's a lot of taconite, which is a low grade of iron ore that is mined in Minnesota today. The high grade stuff was depleted after World War II because it was such a massive operation. We used so much iron. So yes, it is a beautiful place, Minnesota, the North Shore of Minnesota. I highly recommend you visiting. Many lighthouses, much scenery. I've seen bears on the highway before, Highway 61. I think Bob Dylan has a song about Highway 61. Bob Dylan is from Minnesota. He was born in Duluth, it's the greatest inland harbor in the world, actually. It's the largest freshwater port in the world, and it's the largest inland, I don't know who defines the term inland, but it's the largest inland port in the world. He was born in Duluth, but he grew up in Hibbing, I think, which is a mining town on the Mesabi Iron Range, and those were formative years for him. So, yes, Minnesota, the North Star State, the land of 10,000 lakes, the Gopher State, a beautiful place with a beautiful history. So much innovation happens in Minnesota. For a state its size, we really, really, really have outdone everybody else in terms of our innovation. We invented Scotch tape, Post-it notes, command strips, all of that was 3M. Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing is what the 3Ms are. That was actually founded in Two Harbors, and you can visit that site of its founding. The building is still in the town of Two Harbors, Minnesota. We invented that. We invented water skiing on Lake Pepin. We invented Spam, which is another World War II export. And now it's funny because Hawaii is a huge consumer of Spam, but that originated in Minnesota. And speaking of Hawaii, which also has black sand beaches, this is the Black Beach of Silver Bay, Minnesota. It's a beautiful place. There's so many places in Minnesota. We're not even scratching the surface of what the magnificent North Star State has to offer. But obviously, I'll be back. I mean, it's hard to stay away from the place that you came from. So I hope you liked that video. I hope you like Minnesota. Thanks for watching.